Hello, Arcstorming community. Welcome to our last webinar of Teaching the Beach competition. My name is Irene Palomo, and I will be your host today. I just wanted to thank you very much for being with us today and to kindly remind you that tomorrow it's the last day for the regular registration of this competition. We are helping Teach on the Beach, which is an NGO located in Busua, Ghana, to design their new educational center. We would like you to use sustainable materials and easy to learn construction techniques to make it doable for them to build this new educational center. And one of the materials that we suggest you to use in your designs is ramp earth. I'm very honored to have today one of our jury members, Alberto Figueroa, which has successfully built his own classroom also in Ghana using this technique. This was part of a competition also where they had to design different buildings, and he designed a classroom. This competition was organized by NKA Foundation, and he will be with us today explaining us how he managed to not only design this classroom but build, fundraise, and manage all the process until he had this amazing building finished. So he will explain us all this today, and I'm sure it will be very inspiring and useful for you, not only because he will be a jury, but also because he has experience in the country and with this material. So I would like to invite Alberto. Hello, Alberto.
Hi,
Welcome.
lady. Hi, everyone.
Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
As I already explained, it's an honor for us to have you today. And as I told you just before the webinar started, first you will have now some time, around half an hour, 40 minutes, to explain to all our audience how this project that you built in Ghana went. And after your explanation, your presentation, we will have a Q&A session. So I invite everyone, all our audience, to write any question that you may have and you want to Alberto to answer, because at the end of the presentation I will raise those questions to him. So Alberto, welcome. Your turn to present your project. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Rain. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be part of the jury for this competition and as well for this little webinar that we are doing. My name is Alberto Figueroa. I have an office here in Spain, and as Rain explained, in 2018, as part of a competition for NKA Foundation, we submit a proposal for a design, and then we were chosen among a few others to develop, like, to fundraise and build a school in Ghana that I'm going to show you. My experience, or what I think is going to be helpful for this webinar for you. I want to inspire you to do different options for the competition entry, but I think I will be able to provide more information to the process after, when we choose the winners and they are chosen to build your proposal, how all the logistics and all the technical information that I learned by doing it, like how you can maybe avoid some mistakes and maybe like improve the process. And as I said, like, this was organized by NKA Foundation, and we had to design a classroom in the not classroom, but I'll show you later. We had a campus, and we were located in, like, near Kumasi. It's the second city. If you don't know Ghana, like it's the second biggest city in Ghana, and it's in the center of the city, on the center of the country, where you can see more or less. Accra is by the coast, and here is this one is kind of in the middle of the country. This was the location that we had. Like it was a large green area that we have to later like clear and show, but kind of like more or less to show you we were in a very rural area, and then we have to work with the environment and work with the location to for our proposal and later for the construction. Here's the location that where we had our where we were living for a while we're doing the construction, but near this site is where we built our project. This was the original floor plan submitted by the NK Foundation competition, and we were tasked to design a building that will be part of a campus, kind of like this. Like we were free to design like either as a classroom or a space for the teachers, lunchroom, anything that we will think that it will be helpful for to complete this campus. So different teams were chosen to build different parts of this campus. Like there was a team from Germany who built a library, another one that built a classroom. We, as we will see in the following slide, this is the competition proposal that we had. So we decided to design system of classrooms that could be either a small unit, a bigger one. It could be developed into a full campus. So it was more like a system rather than just a specific design for the location. As you see here on the board, like if you go like top to left to right, I'll zoom in a little bit later on the diagrams, but the idea was to build two skins of the building, one for the like a wood facade that will like improve for the sun and breathing and cooling, and an inside wall what it will form the pure classroom or space. It will be formed by ram earth. Will be toned with like different like coloring and everything. And the idea was to like build a system that you can like assemble and turn, so it will create spaces between those two skins, and also like different spaces that they can like generate by turning these little pieces between both skins. This diagram that we work like the thinking of the sun, like recovering rainfall, also the weather or where the time of the teaching is going to happen, and also like cross-breeding, the acoustics, and we were all thinking to pay a lot of attention about the how this classroom will operate, because it has to be on a minimal operational cost, because sometimes like we go a little bit over the thinking and creating a great idea, but later these need to bring down to like construction, and also have to be in consideration the operational cost of that. It doesn't make any sense if we build a building that needs to have some kind of like power delivery or like heating or cooling throughout the year if there's no such if it's not possible on the site, or the cost for the organization to run the school, it will be too high for them, so it will not be feasible. So the process, we designed the project, we were chosen among a few, and then this the competition organizer and Gay Foundation, they assign us to raise the funding and look for the volunteers and bring it to construction. This was the originally, as you can see here, Like we design a big system. Like on the middle diagram, you can see like there's a full campus that we can do like, I don't know, 20, 30 units. And after we fundraise, we will able to fundraise like 7 or 8 thousand euros. So we need to adapt our design to the cost of what we will have available at the time. So we decided to do a smaller building, just with one facade, but it will conserve most of the aspects of the original competition. We want to like include ram earth. We want to use some kind of roof geometry that allow us to help with acoustics and as well as collect rainfall for the washrooms and stuff. And we want to, instead of doing a more classical classroom, here on the layout you have a classical classroom, but we wanted to do a space that it will be more multi-purpose. So the size was more like intended for multi-purpose. Like we wanted to create, if you see the floor plan, on the right you have the entrance and you have like a little space for reunion, like where they have like somewhere they can hang their clothes or they can do storage some stuff, and they have like a little lobby. And then we pass to the main space where it can be used as a classroom, or it could be used as multi-purpose. Like we can have some tables in the middle and they can do like a workshop space. So we'll be up to later the full campus, depending on which buildings they have, to use this building for one thing or the other one. As you can see, we decided to do first, we kind of, before we arrived, we have general idea of what we wanted. But once we cleared the space of the site, because it was full of vegetation, once we cleared the site, and then we saw what kind of topography we have, we saw the slope of the terrain and where we can like locate our building, we adapt the construction and we adjust a little bit. You see there is a little slope on the terrain going down, so we have to do some kind of like concrete foundation, and on top of that we build ram earth, and above that we continue with wood structure, and as well as the roof that it will consist on wood beams and some kind of sheeting on the roof. These were the volunteers, among others, many helped me, and they came to Ghana to be part of the experience and contribute and work to building the school. This is the site. After clearing all the vegetation, you see on the back, like we have tons of vegetation. So for a couple, 3 days, we have to clear this entire site so we can store some equipment, the very little equipment that we have, but also like earth or concrete or sand, everything, and clear the space to be able to work. It's important that you consider the cost and the logistics of the construction, because these buildings is nice. We encourage in the competition phase to be creative and be experimental and propose new ideas. But later on, once it has to come to realization, we need to tone it down a little bit to be able to build it. Because it's not the same as an idea only competition where you submit an idea, could be crazy and wild, but it's not going to be built. In this case, the intent is to be built after, so you need to take that into consideration, the construction, the logistics, or the materials that you're going to use, or how labor intensive it's going to be. So in this case, we have all the factors. We have the money that we were able to raise, the amount of people that we had, and also the materials that we had they were available. As well, there is something that most in the Western countries, we want to provide the technology that we develop using in our home countries. We want to bring it here and develop and use it. And we are kind of we're not afraid to expose materials and to be more creative in that way. We have to think as well that locals in where the project is going to be located, this could be Ghana or this could be Cambodia, it could be anywhere. But the locals, they have also other priorities. So take that as well into consideration. For example, we wanted to use, in our case, no, it could not be for this competition, but in our case, we wanted to use bamboo for the roof. And once we arrived there, the locals, they told us that they didn't want to have any bamboo on the building because they reminds them to kind of like more poor buildings. So they wanted to have something nice. So that's what I mean when we have to think of what the locals want, because maybe they have other priorities. So have that also in the consideration. In this case, we start like digging the foundation, and you see the slope of the building that it was almost like a meter from point to point. And we have start doing some kind of concrete with some basic steel on the foundation, and we have some basic steel rebar, and then we pour the concrete by batches, and then we start using to have some kind of stepped foundation on top of which we will build the ram earth. Since we had a very extremely limited budget, we have to be as resourceful as we could. So we have to, in some cases, repurpose some framework from other teams, or we have to be taking use or reuse as much framework as possible. Take that into consideration as well, because it feels like sometimes the money is unlimited or is going to stretch so much, but in reality you have to consider that you have to pay local workers, whether like they are specialized like a carpenter or a mason, or basic workers. We even pay the, for example, the ladies who bring the water from the river all the way to those like blue deposits. We have to pay everyone, pay the materials, pay the framework, pay for the equipment, like could be, for example, like some circular saw or some hammers. We broke hammers like every week, so you need to take that into consideration, as well as, for example, the amount of earth we need. Like some little mistake that I will explain a little bit later, but one thing that I didn't account for is the amount of earth we will need for the walls, because as you saw on the previous building, we built this with beam, with Revit, and we were able to obtain the volume of earth that we will need for the ram earth. But I didn't take into consideration that when we pour earth for the ram earth, you do batches of about, like, for example, 10 centimeters, and then you have to compress it to half. So most likely you will need twice as much of earth as you thought you will need. So we finished with the concrete foundation. Here are some volunteers and some local workers. We did the concrete by hand, because the speed that we were building framework and curing that concrete, it wasn't fast enough for us to use any other equipment to create the concrete. As you can see, we already have the stepped foundation, and on the left, we start building the ram earth walls. We were able to use already existing framework that it was made of metal, steel. I highly encourage you, in the case that you are going to build it, that use steel framework, because the key aspect on the construction for the ram earth is speed, because it's very labor intensive. It takes a lot of time to set up the frame and the framework and the formwork, and it takes a lot of time, so you cannot speed up anything. Even if you have to, it takes a lot of time to set up, build. You need to go layer by layer, and you need to build it and you cannot go faster than that. So if you can speed up on the process of the formwork, it will help a lot. And also you can repurpose every time, because the problem you always have with the wood is like when you came it apart, sometimes it breaks. So this way, even if it's a little bit more costly, you can repurpose almost infinitely. You can use, I'll show you a little bit of detail, but it was two metal pieces that it has some like square tube on for reinforcement, and we have some rebar that was crossing through. So we have to level it, and then we cover the inside with palm oil to facilitate removing the formwork, and some plastic tube, so we will be able to pull later the rebar on it. As other teams explain, but just in case this is your first webinar, like how the ram earth works. Like you build a formwork, and then you pour the mix that you prepare with pure clay earth, mixed with about 7%, 10% of cement, and slightly moist. Don't damp it, don't make it too watery. And then you pour a layer, you compress it, you pour another layer, compress it, pour another layer, and then you remove the cast. But as you can see here, the diagram is very beautiful, but you most likely you not be able to build a formwork all the way to the top, because you cannot work so deep. So you need to do a little bit of a small layer, and then move alongside or up your formwork. The good thing is like the formwork, the ram earth cures way faster than concrete. Concrete you will need for proper concrete execution, you need 7 days, but you can remove the formwork like after a couple of days if it's not going to have heavy loads. But with formwork, with ram earth, you can remove it like after a couple of hours, 2-3 hours, and then you can move it and you keep working on the next patch. This is the formwork that we used, and as I said, like if where you are going to work, you don't have one, I highly recommend you to talk to a welder, a steel workman on your area, and build one, because it's going to help a lot to have better finish and to speed up the process. As you can see, we have two big metal plates with some square tube as reinforcement, and then we had a rebar that it was passing through, and some plates so we can screw and maintain both plates, and then we can like level with and make sure it's straight, and then we start pouring, and then we remove the cast. I have Irene like civil play have a YouTube page where I documented the whole process of the construction of the school. But there's one specific that I explain how to do. Here's the YouTube link. How to do ram earth, and it's very helpful because there are certain things I didn't count at the moment, that once we start building and we knew people, locals and not locals, that they were working on ram earth, they give us some advice and they teach us how to do it, and I record it on the video so you can learn as well and avoid certain mistakes. For example, you cannot use the same earth that you dig up, even if it's very clay, full of clay. Like as you can see on the picture, like not the one at the bottom, but the one at the back is very red. It feels like you can repurpose the same earth that you're digging up for the foundation. You can repurpose for the walls. You cannot do that. You have to use a pure clay earth, and you will be able to tell that has no organic material in it. You will be able to tell that by smelling it, because if you smell and it smells like earth, it contains vegetation, or it contains organic materials. But if you smell it and it doesn't smell like anything, it's pure clay. So that's the one that you need to use. And also, I recommend you to, before you start building, build a few batches outside your building and try different percentages of concrete, of cement in this case, to see which percentage you want, because the fewer cement you use, it will be more earthy, more red, more, but it will have less consistency and it will take longer to cure. If you use more cement, it will be more gray, but stronger. So you need to fine tune and find the proportion that you want. So the one we went for, I think it was like about 7%. And then you mix it and you start spraying with water and you mix it. And then you have to pour it immediately. Don't think that you can do a huge batch and then you build one day or the next one you will repurpose, because it needs to have the right amount of water, and the cement will start like curing as soon as you add water. Here are our co-workers that we bring buckets and then we pour a layer of about like 10 centimeters and then we compress manually. It's good to come with local workers, especially if they work on the system, because they get more familiarized with this technique, and as well maybe they have more strength than the local workers to properly compress the ram earth and have like a better finish and more consistency. This is the system. This is a picture from the inside. And you see we have some plastic tubes that it will separate exactly the distance that we need. And this formwork like will sit on top of the previous batch or overlap a little bit. And we will have some rebar connecting one to the other one, also all the way to the foundation. And with some manual work, we have some stumps and we cover it with plastics and we start stomping. You see on the back, like we have some loose earth, and on the bottom you have the compressed one. If you use a bigger stump, it will be more homogeneous. It will be more uniform. If you use a smaller one, you can compress it more, but it will squeeze it a little bit and it will move to the side. So you will keep squeezing in and out. So I recommend to have a bigger one from the middle, and the sides of are adjacent to the formwork. Use a smaller one so you can compress the little bit of earth that is coming up. So you have a more consistent, a more polished finish. This is a picture from the inside. You see like a big batch of the bottom, and that will be compressed all the way to the half. So it's important to consider the volume of earth you are going to need, which is about like 50% more than the actual volume of the wall, or it could be up to twice as much. You see the picture here. On the front, the lady is sitting on a small bench that we did. That it was the first batch of ram earth, and on the back we are building with the formwork. We are building on top of the foundation. We are building the perimeter wall, and then we have we'll see later wall in the middle. There will be the wall that is divided in both spaces, and the back the chalkboard. Here we're moving forward. You can see in the middle that there is a wall, that is a formwork. There's where we will build the backboard. We have to continually like change you see here on the left, that's Eddie, and he was like covering the stump with the sack for the rice. We repurposed it to cover the stump, so we were able to like stump and not remove pieces of earth when we were pulling it. and also preserve and help with the stomping. And as I said, we were using as well, you can see here on the inside, we were using palm oil to cover the inside of the wall of the formwork to help later remove the formwork. It smells really bad, but it is helpful because otherwise you have to wait longer to cure everything and remove it so it doesn't a chunk come out. Here's the perimeter wall that is completed almost, and we have the middle wall that is separating the kind of like the lobby from the classroom. As you can see on the perimeter wall, you see on the right, there is a little bit of a bed in the wall, on the top of the wall. That is because we will place some steel bar for connecting, and then we'll pour concrete, and they will be our connection for the wood structure that will go on top. You will see on the following picture. Here are a couple of videos that Irene is going to play for us. What we decided to do is to build some kind of frames of wood that it will be easier to do on the floor, and it will be easier to assemble, and we can like place them on top of those connectors and like pierce them through and place that. You will see on the next video that we'll play later. And this way, even though the ram earth is very time consuming, very labor intensive, this way we were able to speed up a lot with the wood construction and also reduce cost and adjust to our limited cost. We were spraying here all the wood structure to prevent for like any bugs or anything that will deteriorate the wood structure. Here are the same frames on both short walls. We have the same height, but on the longer sides, you will see like here we place one on top, we screw it because there is a hole, and there's the connection like you see around the wall. On top of the wall, there is some kind of like rebar connecting and some kind of concrete that will help us to connect the wood structure to the ram earth. And as you can see on the long side, there are like longer pieces. So that way, like both wood frames will be one place and then connected with a piece of wood. And later on the next scene, you will see how the beam will connect between each frame. So it will be easier to build everything, especially because later, like we don't have any cranes, we barely were able to do any kind of like scaffolding or anything. So you need to take that in consideration that as soon as you move above 1.5 meters above the floor, everything is starting to get more complicated. Especially if you have to do ram earth, you need to bring the earth all the way up. Imagine that you have like 2 meters, 2.5 meters, 3 meters of wall. You need to bring all the earth all the way manually, all the way to the top. The formwork, you need to pull it manually all the way there. Everything gets more complicated. So you need to take that into consideration. You don't have, or maybe you have, but in this case, we didn't have any equipment. You didn't have any cranes. Here's the picture of how we finish all the wood construction on the perimeter. And as you can see, there's like a little mountain that is doing is because we place the beams between each frame. So it sits there and we just nail them through, and then we can build with little rafters in between. You can see through like there is a wall that is in between that will be later finished. And this was the final once the project is finished. As you can see, I'll get more into details. Like we want to, you see some colors and some patterns. What we do, we wanted to have a very breathable building to be able to have a connection with the outside and also like natural ventilation. But we wanted to use the skin as fabric that, if you're not from Ghana, like maybe you don't know, like it's called kente. That is a natural fabric from that a natural fabric that they will design there in Ghana. I'll have a picture later that will show you. This is the inside. This is the lobby that you as you enter. When we finish the, I'll go a little bit back. When we finish the back wall, we level inside with earth, and then the mason that we have to rely on a mason. He made a concrete slab to have a polish finish, and the wall for the jackboard, both sides, we wanted to plaster and have like a smooth finish because maybe we'll have some like furniture there. And on the other side, you will see we have the jackboard, but we wanted to leave the inside of the exterior walls as pure as from earth. The local school director, he wanted to cover everything on plaster, but we wanted to keep it like the ram earth as natural as possible. This is the picture from the inside. We had just the jackboard that it was like a little bit recessed and polished, and on top of that, later they will just bring with some kind of like a black paint, and that will be the jackboard. On top, you see there's a little bit of sky ceiling. I wanted to use more for the roof, that kind of transparent plastic sheeting, but it was very extremely costly, and it didn't give me like very good guarantees that it will perform well over the time. So we just wanted to do a little piece to have some light over the chalkboard. Also, I didn't want to turn the whole classroom into like an oven, because during summer they don't have class, but depending on the time, if they don't have raining season, like after 11 a.m., 12 a.m. start to get like really hot, and I didn't want to abuse with the sunlight, direct sunlight. I wanted to use as indirect as possible. For the roof, we complete the roof between beams with some wood rafters, and on top, unfortunately, the most used material is metal sheeting. I didn't want to use that one, because it makes a lot of noise. It's not very eco-friendly. We were able to find some kind of panel that was made kind of like more like a composite, and kind of like a mix between different things, and it had like a red finish on top. So it was like a middle ground decision, compromise to choose this material. Originally, we wanted to do something else. We wanted to use bamboo, or we wanted to use something else, but this was the material that we were able to do. And the locals, they were agreed to use, because there were a lot of negotiations on which materials we can use or not. We wanted to use for the exterior of the facade, we wanted to use some kind of like the leaf of a plant that it was very long and it will be dry, and then we wanted to weave it along this wood frame on the wall, but they said absolutely not. They didn't want to, as well as bamboo or anything that resembles any of that. Wood was the best option that they had. If it was up to them, they will have everything on concrete or concrete block, or so it was a lot of negotiations, and to have preserved as much as we wanted from the project and like please them in a way. This is a picture from the classroom from inside. The idea was to like complete the campus, and after the education minister or the ministry will come here and certify the school, and then we'll provide for the furniture or whatever they need, the books, the materials, everything. We wanted to use color as much as possible for the structure, for everything, because it's something that they like a lot on the original project. and we wanted to be more colorful, and they appreciate that a lot because other teams, they have different structure, different projects, but they were more toned down. They were morely concrete and earth, and they appreciate a lot that we use a lot of color for that. This is the material that I was talking about. On the left, upper left, you'll see the gentleman who's weaving the kente, which is a piece of fabric that has its own language because it's made for specific purposes and it has a meaning. The pattern, the colors, everything that you design, it has a meaning. Like, for example, if a politician or someone who is important comes to them or ask for a special one, they design it especially for that person. Or maybe they designed one that means education or they means anything. So this design of this language, of this color, of part of the culture, we wanted to incorporate on the project. So that's why we treat the outside of the building with color, but also with some kind of like creating a pattern of kind of like a kente, using colors and patterns and creating like a fabric that wraps around the facade. We wanted to use that kind of weaving to complete it and have like a full fabric, but since they didn't want it, so I just wanted to leave it like this. As you can see here, there's a little close-up. And that will be it. If you have any more questions, like we'll go through them. And if I forget anything, I'll come up with whatever you need.
Thank you so much, Alberto. Very interesting, everything that you shared with us. I'm sure it was very inspiring for everyone.
Thank you.
I wanted to congratulate you because, as I said in the beginning, and you basically explained all through the presentation, not only you designed the project, but you build it, you fundraise it, you recruited all the volunteers, you hired the labor, local labor there. So it's really amazing the work you have done, and the result. It's very, very nice. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And first of all, well, I've seen we have already two questions. While we wait for someone else to write their questions, I wanted to ask you about the whole experience from being an architect to really building your own building. You've already mentioned some interesting lessons that you have learned. But if you will have to choose one advice to give our participants in this competition, it's also going to be in Ghana. They need to take care of the budget because it's going to be easier for the NGO, weather condition, labor. I don't know. If you had to choose one advice, what will it be?
I will say to think as well what the local user is going to appreciate or want, like to tailor the project to the site, the culture, and kind of what they want. Have that in consideration, because as I said in the beginning, like it's good that we came up with like crazy ideas or we have our own agenda to design something, but also have on the rear mirror like maybe it will be difficult on the designing competition phase to guess what they want. But it was, if you look up the maybe other project that was built or from other teams or other competitions, like maybe you see something in common that maybe resonates with you, so maybe like you can learn from that.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes we think something it's better from our own perspective, but when you get there, you realize that maybe the needs and the reality is different.
Yeah.
So they
For
should take into account that.
for me, it was like kind of like shocked me, but kind of like I wasn't expecting that. Like for choosing the materials, like we wanted to use more natural material. We wanted to use bamboo. We wanted to use that kind of long leaf that we were able to
Mhm.
dry and weave along, kind of like the same as we would use for wood or anything other natural material. We wanted to use that and have like
A
very eco-friendly
natural.
and resourceful and local materials. And it shocked me a little bit that they didn't want that, because for them psychologically, like it felt them more like um, low cost, and they wanted to have something more polished, something that we take kind of for granted on Western countries, like
Mhm.
more like concrete, more like what we through architecture we had on the 80s. Like we were like looking for like those like concrete, like brutalism, like the concrete structure, the steel, the everything. So they prefer in their eyes, at least for the finished project, they want to have as smooth and as polished as possible. And
Okay.
for us, we wanted to do the opposite.
Mhm. Okay, very interesting. And a more practical question, because you also share a lot of advice, like for example, when you were explaining about the RAM earth, how to choose the different earth while smelling it. No, if it smelled like earth, it had the organic, so it was not the clay that we wanted. Um, when and you also mentioned that of course budget was very important, and well, 6,000 euros, right, was the final budget you
Yeah, between 6 and 7,000.
7,000 euros to build
Back
this.
then, like it was like 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know how the currency changed, but
Okay, but it's a reference, and it's really impressive because it's a very limited budget. So you use ram earth, wood. What about the prices of these materials? Like, what was the most expensive material back then that you used, and the cheapest one?
um, not by the material itself, because that's something that you have to also consider, that the cost comes with everything around it. For example, earth could be really cheap, but since it's very labor intensive and very slow, you need to pay the wages for the workers for longer time. um, the delivery of the truck delivery, like for us it was delayed a week and a half, so we were able to continue for the work, and it was very pricey, the delivery, not the earth itself. With the wood, it seems like a little bit more pricey than ram earth, but it's way faster. And even though you have to pay a carpenter and an assistant, we were able to finish the roof in like a week, two. For the rammers that you saw, it took us like a month and a half. It's
Mhm.
very slow, and other teams, they build their own projects, and they build 2 meters and a half, almost 3 meters of rammers. It took them like they have twice as many local workers, and they have to sometimes they work like 6 days a week, and a lot of volunteers, and they have it's very intensive. It's really nice. It's
Mhm.
extremely I think it's a beautiful construction system, and obviously way better than using like a pure concrete wall or a concrete block. But you have to also take in consideration that it's very labor intensive, and you have to balance what you want, like
Mhm.
take everything in consideration.
Yeah, so it's a mix of factors that you need to
Yeah,
take all of them into account, not just the price of the raw material.
yeah.
Okay. So I think we can go now to see the questions of our audience.
Okay.
Um, let's see the first question from Josue Marquez. He's asking, how do you manage the structures calculations? I mean, it's a light structure, but how much you can load over the ram earth?
For I was able to calculate the wood part, because even though the wood wasn't coming from somewhere that it was certified, I can have some kind of guess more or less on. So I was able to calculate some kind of sections for the beams and the wood and everything. For the rammers, it was eyeballing more or less, because since we our building, it's very small. Like, unless you have 2 3 floors levels, and the loads that you're having for just one level, just the roof, is very small. Especially if the higher you go on the percentage of cement, the stronger it will be the walls. After the rammers is cured and the rammers is properly done, like compressed and properly done, it's extremely hard. Like, it could be comparable to a concrete wall for a small scale. If you can build like 1 2 stories, no problem, using load bearing, like we were using like a thick wall. So in that case, it won't be a problem. It's not. Sometimes people confuse rammers with something that we call tapial, which is like using around the wall. Like, you have a formwork that is maybe made of wood, and you pour the earth, but it doesn't have any cement. So you compress it a little bit, and you remove the cast, and then you put some plaster or cement, and then that, if you apply a load on the wall, sometimes they collapse and they break. But on the rammers, since it has cement, the cement helps to bring everything together, and it brings a lot of resistance for loading.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. So basically, you really need to see, depending on the project, and once you are there, right? Because there is not a really arithmetic calculation, right?
Not that I knew at the moment, and I didn't run calculations for the load bearing of the wall. The load bearing of the wall was the least of my worries. For structurally, I was more worried about the wood. For the walls, I didn't have any worries. If I'm going to do like 2 3 stories, like levels, maybe I have to run some calculations. But if you're doing just one story, like 2 3 meters, I saw there were other projects that they were like have tall walls. They have like 3 4 meters and like 3.5 something, and didn't have any problem. Especially since most of the roofs that they are built in Ghana are made of wood and sheeting. So usually the roof structure is extremely light.
Okay. So not a huge problem. Okay, these Patalab architects, they are asking, is this composite roof sheet efficient in terms of heat insulation? Is it available and costly accessible in all Ghana?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember exactly the name of that, but it's very similar to metal sheeting on cost wise. In terms of heat insulation, negligible. Is like similar to metal sheets, maybe a little bit more, but similar. I wanted to do maybe a different system. Maybe for future projects, I recommend something like combining some kind of like a base made of plywood and spacing, and then have the sheeting. But at the end, since we will have such an open building and very breathable, as long as you cast shade, it helps tremendously. And you have to consider that the more intensive uh, sun time, maybe they don't have class. So during the winter, where they have class time.
Okay. Did you consider using thatch roof?
What is that?
Straw paja?
It wasn't available on our area, and I'm pretty sure the locals, they didn't want that. Anything that resembles anything that
Natural, right? Too cheap.
kind of, yeah, and also because it requires them to like reapply after a few years. I know that the project that we're doing for the competition, the original building, they are using that, and it's extremely good, thermal efficient. It's really good, but you have to be considered that you have to replace after a year or a few years.
Okay, so the maintenance maybe it's not
Yeah,
ideal.
and also like I didn't have any experience building with that, so I wouldn't be able to build it.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Next question from Miriama. Was it hard to deal with locals to get materials, or did they deliver stuff as promised, or you have any problem?
Very good question. We had ups and downs. Thankfully, we had one representative from the NKA Foundation from the competition who was helping us to mediate with local suppliers, and through him, we were paying him, and he was delivering like major stuff, like a truck full of earth or sand or cement or small things like little tools like hammers and stuff like that. We will go directly to a store and buy it ourselves, because like stores with like hardware stores, like small hardware stores, they are like everywhere, so you can buy that directly anywhere. But for like big purchases, it's better to count someone local, because first of all, especially for example, if you're going to buy wood, like I had him as intermediary, because as soon as they see you and you are not local, you are going to have a different price. You're going to have a higher price because they know that you can afford it. So you have the Obroni price.
Yeah, this is
European. It means like white. So not only the cost, but also you need to know that it moves in a different rhythm. That maybe if you are from Europe or United States, we here are extremely important timing, and we value a lot like when you supply it, how you supply it, everything. There maybe it takes different time, like maybe you order and it has to come on Monday and maybe come on Thursday, so it has different timing. I didn't have any bad experience with my local workers, but with some suppliers, for example the sand, it took us a week and a half later, and they delivered the sand. We were waiting for a week and a half, and we cleared a huge path for the truck to deliver, to come backwards and deliver it on our side, and then they deliver it on the wrong side. So we have to wheelbarrow all the sand all the way to our project.
okay. Yeah, I mean,
Late.
it's always at least better. It's always better at least to have some local person worker that can help you out, because if, when you are in a unknown country, different country, you don't have
Yeah.
contacts or relations or anything. So for sure, that was very helpful.
In this case, in this case in Ghana, like you don't have any problem with the language, because absolutely everyone speaks perfect English.
Okay.
But the thing is to learn how to negotiate or how to deal with locals, especially for big purchases. It's highly
Yes.
recommended.
Yeah. Okay, I think this is the last question from Ranuma. She's asking, does from earth construction need long-term maintenance? If yes, then in how many years' time? Thanks in advance. And would you suggest any other alternative to RAM earth construction?
No, not that I'm aware. Like even projects here in Europe or North America, they use ram earth, and they use it for mostly for outside. So once the wall is cured, the cement start working into action. As I said, it's like as hard as concrete wall. Like it's extremely resistant. You cannot break it. You cannot like it doesn't erode. Like it will do the same as like a earth wall, like tapial. It's extremely consistent. Like maybe the little rocks, if you have little rocks, like maybe the children, they will pick it up if they can, but the whole wall will remain there for very very long time. And I like a lot the system. I don't recommend to any other. Like maybe you can play with others, but it's good to have a combination of both ram earth and wood. Punctually, if you can use some steel for the roof, but with wood and ram earth, you can have very nice projects. I had there was another team, German team. There were a lot of people on that team, and they, instead of using ram earth, they decide to create their own bricks made of mud, the same earth that we were using, but instead of like casting it on a wall, they had a machine to compress and build bricks. I don't recommend that at all, because if ram earth is a little bit cost intensive, building your own bricks is insanely time consuming and labor intensive, and took them a lot of people a lot of time to just build the walls, and at the end it doesn't look as nice as ram earth. Like we, the other one of the webinars that we had with Hive Architecture, like, see, once you control how you pour the ram earth, you can have a beautiful finish. You can have some patterns and change the how much cement you use or which kind of earth are you using to pour, so you can have beautiful patterns. And once you start like polishing your technique and try different things, you can have amazing finish.
Well, as you mentioned before, in your YouTube channel, you have more videos explaining Ram Earth, the use you had, and everything. So I invite our audience to visit it so they can learn more about your experience using Ram Earth.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Alberto. I think there is no more question, but we have already been um, talking with you for 1 hour. So I am sure you are exhausted, but thank you so much.
thank
It
you for
was
having me.
very interesting to listen to you. And well, we will see each other in July during the jury deliberation. I just remind everyone that is listening to us right now that we will have this the competition. It will end the submissions in July 12th, and tomorrow is the last day for the regular registration. So I invite everyone to join us. And Alberto, see you in July. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Bye
Bye.
everyone.